Hey guys, let's talk about this week's episode of Almost Human, and this was definitely its strongest episode to date. We had a lot of interesting things going on, lots of interesting developments, starting with the creator of the DRNs, and that was Dr. Nigel Vaughn. And what we found out in this episode was that there were a bunch of DRNs that were decommissioned, and it happened because they were afraid that they were going to turn into these, I guess, crazy, unpredictable killing machines. And so they decided that they were going to rather kill themselves than turn into these killing machines that would kill human lives. And when all the DRNs were decommissioned, he created a new one called an XRN. And this one pretty much has the same internal devices and mechanics and all that stuff as the DRN has, but this one is an absolute killing machine. And it was resurrected in this episode. Now, way back when, there was an episode where this group called the In Syndicate had tried to break into this evidence lab. And what we found out in this episode was a woman was basically killed at the top of the episode so that this machine would be shot at and turned into the evidence lab. And then ultimately, this machine got up got back to life and stole the head of this XRN and attached itself to a body, and then the was able to walk out of this evidence lab and started going on another killing spree. So all of this was pretty much a ruse so that we would think that Dr. Nigel Vaughn was actually wanting to destroy this machine, this killing machine, when in fact he wants to make multiple copies of it. And that's a very scary, scary thing. So this episode really brought some layers because there was a definite connection between Dorian and Dr. Nigel Vaughn. So those scenes that they had together were really kind of nice and sweet, and you kind of saw that he looked at him in like a father-son relationship. And he was like, oh, you're still a cop, you're still this, you're still that. And so he was asking all these questions because pretty much Dr. Nigel Vaughn has been like hiding out, and he's pretty much been blacklisted because his greatest creation turned out to be this crazy killing machine, and it ended up killing, I think, like 29 cops in 3 days, and it was just horrible. So he has not really been heard from since. And I guess he has all these vials that can be used to create more of these XRNs. And ultimately, by the end of the episode, he is in possession of these vials, and obviously, is he going to be using them for good, for evil? I have a feeling it's more on the evil side. Could he be being blackmailed? I don't know. And it raises a lot of very interesting questions. And by the end of the episode, he ends up going over the wall, which is pretty much another side of this place where they're living that also has another crime element to it. But what this wall, I guess, this barrier has done is sort of separated most of like the really, really bad crimes from the crimes that are sort of everyday crimes that are happening on the other side of the wall. That's sort of the explanation that we kind of get from this wall. We haven't really heard a lot about it, but they briefly spoke about it in the beginning of the season. Now, the other very interesting thing that happened in this episode was Dorian and how he was handling all this, the realization that he could possibly turn into this XRN or like this XRN because he was told he was pretty much made up of the same exact technical technique, like everything that's inside of her is inside of him. So he's going through this internal struggle, like, is this going to be me one day? Am I going to snap? Am I going to turn? Could I turn to this killing machine? And he has a, like, I guess what it is like they created him with a soul, and that is one of the things that makes him almost human. And your soul really dictates your actions in life, and your DNA just, it shows like your physical, like how you physically look, but your soul is ultimately who you are. And so this XRN, Danica, was like this brutal machine who was an ultimate fighter and could kill anything in her sights. So this sort of leads the question: is this a potential future for Dorian, what will happen. And you could see Kennex trying to let him know, like, no, that's not going to be you. And, Kennex was even like really protecting him, as if like really taking him in as a partner and looking at him like a human and not so much like a synthetic. So that should be very interesting moving forward. I felt like this episode is sort of going to lead us to a nice story arc, which is one of the things I've been like dying to see on this show, because pretty much every episode has been sort of like a procedural. You got your case of the week, it ends, and then they move on to the next week. And there's really no mention between one week to the next as to how the cases or what the overall arcing storyline has been for this season. We've had a little bit of a mention of the In Syndicate. We had a very brief mention of his ex-girlfriend that betrayed him when he was in a therapy session, but that's really been it. And so now I'm hoping with this big reveal that the doctor, was pretty much lying to them the entire time in this episode, and now he's over the wall, and what that will ultimately mean, because obviously they're not just going to drop that thread. And, I think we only have 3 or 4 episodes left. So I'm hoping that this will be the story arc that catapults us into a really great final 3 episodes. Now, what I did hear was that the next episode that's going to air, so this was episode 9, and the next episode that's going to air was actually the 4th episode that was shot, which is still really driving me crazy that they're still airing these out of order. But I'm hoping that maybe there is some, more discussion about the wall. Maybe there is some more stuff that will help bridge the gap between the next 3 episodes that follow after that and lead us to a nice, good finale. But again, I felt that this was one of the stronger episodes. We got a lot of great emotional, story-driven stuff from Dorian. We had some really great stuff with the doctor. We got to see this ruthless side of the XRNs, and the fact that, the DRNs ultimately chose to kill themselves, then let themselves turn into this horrific, killing machine. So very interesting stuff that they threw out in this episode, and it'll be very interesting to see where it goes forwards. And of course, we had some, cute little funny banter that went on between Kennex and Dorian, as well as Rudy. So that's always good to have that comic relief through the episode, because it was a bit of a heavy episode in this one. But again, I like the direction that it's going in, and we'll see if it can hold this momentum going into the last 4 episodes. All right, guys, that's been my review of Almost Human. Let me know what you thought, and leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye guys.